point out that the sun shines down its power to all the world and makes the wind blow strong as it will. I wonder how gentle rains can fall upon the land, so lovely earth can stay lovely still. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the 554th edition of Energy Week with George Harvey and Tom Fennell.
In the flesh.
Tom is in the flesh. He's
but not in the studio.
Not in the studio. He's in his home. He's been here virtually for quite a long time. And we're starting today. This show actually covers 2 weeks. So we're starting on Thursday, December 21st, and we'll have 1 or 2 items per day until we get up to the 3rd of January, 2024.
What I got in front of me is all we're going to be talking about.
Yeah, I suppose.
Okay, good.
And we'll wing it from there. The show is from my blog, geoharvey.com, and you can go there to find links to the original articles, or there are a couple of links or things that you can download farther down on the screen here where you can get links to the articles. So our first article starts with a picture of Toronto. I'll put that up.
It's from the Toronto Star.
Yeah, that's what it is. The picture isn't from the Toronto Star, but the article is. What do you have for title, Tom?
Ontario's welcome, about face on renewable energy.
Right. Premier Doug Ford appears to have experienced a come to green power moment. Ontario Energy Minister Todd Smith put out the call for 2,000 megawatts, about 5% of all the generation in the province, of non-emitting power generation, including wind, solar, hydro, and bioenergy.
It's a step in the right direction.
I think it is. I think that, that Doug Ford has got a reputation of being anti-renewable, pro.
He's the governor, right?
Well, he's the premier, the equivalent of a governor.
Thing, yeah.
It's the Canadians. They don't know how to call a governor or something. So they call the governor a premier, and of course we in Vermont have got no idea what a premier is, so we call the guy in Montpelier a governor. So, it's just people not knowing about each other. Okay, we're going to go to our next item, which is on Friday, December 22nd. And here is a picture of a place I've actually been at.
King's College?
King's College, yeah. That courtyard in the middle of that, I've actually been in.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, it is. I lived in the UK for a short time, and one of the things that we did was go around and look at.
Well, this comes to us from The Guardian, and that's a British newspaper, isn't it?
It's British and Australian. And, of course, this one is from the British Guardian. They're the same organization, but
different news.
They're split somehow. Yeah, what do you have for title?
Britain's roots can be a huge resource for solar energy.
Yeah, roofs occupy an enormous amount of surface area in British cities, and yet only a small fraction of the space is used for solar panels, despite the obvious benefits. There is the equivalent of thousands of hectares, and a hectare is what, Tom, 2.4 acres?
That sounds about right.
Yeah. Thousands of hectares of suitable roofs. The chapel at King's College, Cambridge, is an example. That chapel, which looks like it shouldn't be called a chapel, it should be called I don't know what. It's not big enough to be a cathedral. Actually, it is big enough to be a cathedral, but
it's a church. It's
a church. It's a big church.
A big one.
And it's a big medieval church. And the roof of it, this article shows a picture of the roof of it, which is completely covered with solar panels.
I can't tell that by looking at my
No,
picture.
you can't. But if you go to the article and read it, there are other pictures of this in that article. So that's what it's doing. So I guess it's time to go on to the next item. You want to?
I think it is, and that's a picture of Seattle.
That is a picture of Seattle. I've been in Seattle, but not recently. And
I think I've ever been there.
yeah, I was there. I was there in 1996. I was invited out to be there when they were going to introduce a new operating system, which was I forget the name of it, but it was a secure operating system. They were very proud of it. This is from Clean Technica. What have you got?
And it says that I quote, Seattle gets creative to limit methane gas pollution as industry pushes back.
Yep. After an appellate court ruled that because the Federal Energy Policy Conservation Act prevents cities and states from setting certain standards, local authorities can't ban fossil fuel burning appliances.
That's not good.
No, but the city of Seattle has decided to get creative. And they're looking for other ways to reduce the amount of consumption.
Way to go.
Yeah. So if you want...
It's a different grid now.
It's a different grid. That's right.
Well, distributed energy.
Yeah.
Energy sources. No more giant sources of energy.
Yeah, that's where we're going to be going, I think.
We're moving toward distributed generation.
Right.
Or distributed generation.
Yep. Okay, we're up to Saturday, December 23rd, and we have a picture of a solar array in Colorado, and I don't know why it is. I look at that picture, and I just think it's Colorado. No, seriously, I think maybe it's the mountains in the background. I think that might be Pikes Peak in the background.
It could very well be.
But I look at this, and it just has that... I used to, when I was 5 years old, I lived in Denver. And that was, 4 years old, 1950. 5 years old, 1951. And my recollections of Denver and that area look like this without a solar array. That's what it looks like. My father took my brother and me up onto Pikes Peak when we were little kids, and we went up there, I think, on the 4th of July and had a snowball fight and thought that was very funny. Okay. So this is from PR Newswire, and I'll bet you've got a title for it.
And I quote, Pike Solar powers up, commences commercial operations in Colorado.
Right. Independent renewable project developer, owner, and operator, Deriva Energy, based in Charlotte, North Carolina, announced the start of commercial operation at Pike Solar in El Paso County, Colorado. Pike Solar will provide energy to Colorado Springs utilities. Well, if it's Colorado Springs, I think it's not Pikes Peak. But nevertheless, it reminds me of Pikes Peak.
I'll take your word for it.
Okay.
Let's move on.
Oh, if you want to.
We got a picture of a UK wind farm.
We have a picture of a UK wind farm. You took the words right out of my mouth, and I gave them back to you. Okay, this is from Tech Explorer.
Okay.
That picture is from Pixabay, and it's public domain. So what do you have a title for this? Long title.
Britain likely to generate more electricity from wind, solar, and hydro than fossil fuels for the first year in 2023.
Yeah.
Well, 2023 is just over, isn't it?
That's right. And they've actually, since this article appeared, I've seen a couple of places come up with numbers, and they said it certainly did they did generate more. Now, this is not all renewables. This is wind, solar, and hydro. And of course, that leaves a couple of kinds of fossil fuels out. But yeah,
It uses, well, just as you said, fossil fuels.
yes,
They're not using fossil fuels. They're using
hydro and solar and wind. And the fossil
Exactly.
fuels that they're using, they only have one. I had thought they had closed the last coal power plant in Britain, but apparently they still have one. And they have a number of plants that are burning natural gas, and that's becoming, well, less prevalent with the passing of time. Partly because the Russians invaded Ukraine. The Russians were a big source of natural gas. When the British started giving Ukraine support, the Russians cut off their natural gas system, so they had to do something to reduce the amount of natural gas they're burning. And I think that's the way it is. You know, if you're going to burn fuel, you're going to lose a certain level of security because somebody can shut your fuel off, whether it's somebody outside the country or somebody inside the country.
Well, fuel per se is on its way out. It's becoming
I agree.
unfashionable.
I agree. And as a matter of fact, some people are trying to replace natural gas with hydrogen, and I think there are problems with that.
Well, it depends on how the hydrogen is created.
Well, it's got to be green hydrogen because most of the hydrogen in the United States is created from natural gas, a little bit of it from coal. And now they're starting to produce what's called green hydrogen by using energy from mostly solar and wind. But, you know.
So if the source is green, they call it green energy.
That's right. And green energy for hydrogen, hydrogen has got problems. Problems with storage.
Yeah, it's difficult to store.
Darn near impossible, you know, and you can move liquid hydrogen around, but I wouldn't want to do that on a railroad track because
The best way to move it around is turning it into ammonia.
that's probably the best way, but they do move it around as a liquid sometimes, and the way they do that is by having a like a little teeny hatch that they just leave open so it can boil continuously, and the boiling cools it. You know, the hotter molecules of hydrogen will be lost. And
Didn't they have a problem with that at a railroad just north of Vermont?
I don't think it was with hydrogen. I think it might have been liquefied natural gas or even propane. But these fuels, the fact that they can burn means that they're dangerous at some point. And that's true of, you know, I hear about people talking about how awful the fires are when electric vehicles catch fire, their batteries, and it's not true that all batteries do that. There are a lot of batteries that won't burn.
Automobiles with gasoline in a tank catch fire too.
Absolutely. And the only fires I've ever seen in cars were scary as all get out, but they were gasoline burning.
Absolutely.
And, you know, gasoline, I forget the number of sticks of dynamite is the equivalent of a gallon of gasoline vaporized, but it's lots of dynamite. The propane will go downhill until it pools someplace, and then a spark will explode it. Natural gas can explode and does explode sometimes. All of these fuels are difficult and to some extent unsafe. And the people who want to push fuels like fossil fuels speak very disparagingly of batteries and how dangerous they are. And they're not all that dangerous compared to gasoline.
No, they're not. I mean, we're used to gasoline, but it is dangerous.
It is dangerous. I read somewhere that a car is 40 times as likely to, a gasoline-powered car is 40 times as likely to burn as a battery-powered car. Okay, we have to go on. And we have a picture of an apparatus. Apparatu. That's how this. Apparatu, apparatus. My brother lived in Africa, and he spoke the patois, refined people call it.
We're looking at the same one, a PV rejuvenation device?
That's right, yeah, and it's this is from Interesting Engineering, and it is interesting, I think. What do you got?
Well, they don't explain how that thing works, but new technology can rejuvenate and extend the life of old solar panels.
Really interesting stuff. Edavolt, a new company spun off of Nanyang Technology University in Singapore, developed a nifty device. Nifty is an old-fashioned word. You know that it's nifty if they say it's nifty. That can rejuvenate and extend the life of old PV panels. The technology can be used on around 90% of all existing PV panels available worldwide.
What are they actually doing?
They heat it, they put light on it. They have found out that the damage done by charging and discharging can be undone by use of heat and light. And I don't know anything about the chemistry or the... What's that?
They're cleaning the surface, too.
Yeah, they are. I think that's true, Tom. Okay.
I think it makes a big difference, too.
Yes, I believe that's correct. Our next picture, we're up to Monday, December 25th. And believe it or not, Monday, December 25th, I was doing my blog, 4 o'clock in the morning. That's what I was doing. I was not being Santa Claus. I didn't even look like I was being Santa Claus. Kids occasionally ask me if I'm Santa Claus. And I say, no, but I do look a lot like him, don't I? I think he might be a cousin of mine. Okay, this is offshorewind.biz. And we have a picture.
Deep Wind Offshore reveals 70 turbine wind farms project offshore in Sweden.
Right. Deep Wind Offshore, based in Norway, is submitting a permit application for construction and operation of an offshore wind farm in the Gulf of Bothnia. Now, how often do you think about the Gulf of Bothnia?
Oh, every morning I think about it for about 15 minutes.
Really? This is off the south coast of Sweden. The Olof Skutskning wind farm will include up to 70 wind turbines.
It's going to be a significant wind farm.
Oh, yeah. I think it looks like quite a lot of fun, and that's an interesting vessel that's on there. I don't know if that's I don't think that's an installation vessel. I think an installation vessel would be a jack-up vessel and probably have a huge crane on it. This looks like it might be a maintenance vessel. Okay, we're up to Tuesday, December 26th. We are just moving along, aren't we?
We are, aren't we?
Yeah, and we have another picture of a wind farm.
More picture of wind turbines.
Yeah, and this is from The Guardian again.
It is again.
Yep.
And it says, and I quote, Uruguay's green power revolution, rapid shift to wind shows the world how it's done.
I found
Uruguay already has a lot of hydro.
Uruguay was one of those countries that had a lot of hydro, and Paraguay has more hydro than it can use. Really interesting stuff going on down there. Let's see, in 2008, to escape high oil prices, Uruguay's President Vasquez needed rapid solutions. He turned to Ramon Vendez Galén, a nuclear physicist who would transform the country's energy grid to one of the cleanest in the world, and that is based on wind power, not nuclear power. And the president of the country and a lot of politicians were saying they should go to nuclear. And this nuclear physicist said, no, it's too expensive. We'll go to wind.
Just going to say, it's pricing itself out of existence.
Yeah, that's right. That's exactly right. So over the course of the years that have passed since they got this started in 2008, they've got to a point where they're running at very close to 100% renewable energy. And
it's the way of the future.
It is.
I've said it on the show before. I'm going to say it again.
Yeah?
In future days, people are going to say, they actually paid for fuel.
Yes, I think they will say that. Okay, we have another picture of a wind farm.
I'm getting tired of seeing wind farms.
Oh, yeah, a lot of people are getting tired of seeing wind farms. But there are people who actually pay extra for land and a house when a wind farm is in sight.
That's interesting.
Isn't it?
Okay. Why would they do that?
Because they just think that those turbines spinning is just lovely, graceful, like watching ballet dancers. People like watching sailing ships. You know that. They just seem to be graceful. It doesn't matter whether they're square rigged or Marconi rigged ships. It doesn't matter. By the way, do you know why a Marconi rigged ship is called a Marconi rigged ship?
I didn't even know there was such a thing.
Well, in a ship where the sails, or a boat where the sails are triangular,
yeah,
that's called Marconi rigged. And
okay.
The reason why it's called Marconi rigged is because you can turn the mast into a Marconi receiver and sender of signals.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, I'm not kidding. I looked it up.
I believe it.
And the other one is called gaff rigged, where you have a four-sided figure, but it looks like a Marconi rigged sail that has been cut off and had a gaff put in. Okay, this is from Electrek. Am I right?
It is. You are right.
No. Oh yeah, I am right. Okay, this is, and you have a title for this too, I'll bet you.
In Montana, wind is about to overtake coal generation capacity.
Right. Data from the Energy Information Administration, and by the way, I do not trust, the Energy Information Administration is a part of the U.S. government, and I do not trust it on face value, because there have been certain kinds of information where it was always way off. But in this case...
it's getting involved.
Yeah, in this case, I think we're looking into historic data, or hysteric and up to date, and that's usually pretty good. The stuff where they're looking ahead and making predictions is where things go funny. Data from the Energy Information Administration show Montana coal plants had 1,631 megawatts of nameplate capacity in October.
That's more than a gigawatt and a half.
That is. In the same period, Montana's wind capacity was 1,479 megawatts. But 2 new Montana wind farms will soon come online. I think they may actually have come online, changing the balance. And so there's going to be more wind capacity than coal capacity in Montana, which I think is kind of remarkable.
Well, like I said, you don't have to pay for the fuel.
That's I think you're brilliant, Tom, to have perceived that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, we're up to Wednesday, December 27th, and we have a picture of, guess what?
Well, it says it's Columbia Energy Center.
Yeah. This is from Wisconsin Watch. That is a coal-burning plant, which you can know because it's got those
long conveyors.
Long conveyors hoisting the coal up, and the coal just drops in bunkers or piles or whatever. But those long conveyors are there for solid fuel.
That was very reminiscent of the generating station in New York City.
Yes, they are actually. Yeah.
It's now they've dropped the generating station now, and they got a lot of solar panels there.
Yes, and if you look at this picture, you'll see that there's two kind of dark gray buildings. One almost exactly in the middle, which looks like it's got a bunch of very short chimneys on top, and then to the left of that, there's another one just like it. And those
They must be cooling buildings.
I'm pretty sure those are cooling structures, similar to the ones that used to be at the Vermont Yankee nuclear plant. Yep. Okay, so what have you got for this? This is from Wisconsin Watch.
Developers hope a balloon-like battery will aid Wisconsin renewable energy efforts.
Yeah, when Wisconsin's largest coal plant, the Columbia Energy Center, closes in a few years, a carbon dioxide-filled, quote, battery, end quote, developed by the Italian company Energy Dome, will take its place. The facility will use carbon dioxide for energy storage.
That's interesting. So they generate carbon dioxide and they save that.
No, they just save it. They reuse that carbon dioxide. They compress it. It's one of these things that is like that. What do they call that battery? The
Low battery?
No, there's a battery that just stores air, compressed air. And they compress the air. And there's a lot of different designs that do this. And some of them, they just move in on a salt dome that has had the salt removed. And when that happens, you can have a salt dome that has, 300 foot tall cavern in it that's 150 feet across. And you can store a lot of carbon dioxide or natural gas or whatever.
They do that.
They do. Okay. Now we're up to Thursdays, December 28th, and we have a picture of something that is kind of inexplicable unless it's explained.
So you're going to explain it.
Yeah, this is construction work on a wooden wind turbine, and what they mean is the mast is made of wood instead of steel.
I don't figure the turbine itself is made of.
And they have different reasons why they say a mast is superior to steel, and in some respects it is. This is from the BBC.
And the title is "The World's Tallest Wooden Wind Turbine Starts Turning."
A Swedish startup called Modvion says it has just built the world's tallest wooden turbine tower. The 2 megawatt generator on top has started supplying electricity to the Swedish grid, providing enough power for about 400 homes. Modvion claims that using wood for wind power is the future. Well, that's what they say.
It could very well be.
Yeah, we have had a lot of wind turbines on this show today. Now we're up to Friday, the 29th of December.
And there's another wind turbine.
This is another wind turbine. And this one, I don't know, it looks kind of sinister with all that dark stuff, doesn't it?
Doesn't it?
This is from Current News.
2023, a year in UK energy industry successes.
Yeah, this year has been all full of twists and U-turns, but the UK energy industry has persevered toward a net zero trajectory. To celebrate the energy industry's collective efforts, it's got a plus and minus symbol as part of the name. So Current plus minus outlines some of the top decarbonization successes in 2023 in the UK, with comments from key energy players. And of course, this refers back to that same article that we had at the beginning, where they said that solar, wind, and hydro was producing more electricity than coal. And of course, the solar, wind, and hydro are all growing, or at least the solar and the wind are growing. The coal is slowly collapsing. So I don't think coal is ever going to recover.
Well, it's more costly to extract.
It's more costly to extract coal than it is to wait for the wind to blow? How could you say such a thing, Tom? Okay. And then when you've extracted all the wind energy, you can store it in a place that looks like this. This is from Clean Technica.
A whole bunch of batteries.
That's a whole bunch of batteries. Yes, that's exactly what that is. And
Skatex, whoever Skatex is.
Skatec. It's Scandinavian technology.
540 megawatts PV.
Yeah.
1,140 megavolt hours. Battery storage project in South Africa begins supplying electricity.
Okay.
Now, that's pretty good storage. That's a lot of storage.
That's a lot of storage. And they need it down there. Skatec announced that the Kenhard plants in North Cape province are sending power to South African grid. The plant is designed to deliver 150 megawatts of sending power to the South African grid. The plant is designed to deliver 150 megawatts of dispatchable power to the national grid year-round from 5 a.m. to 9:30 p.m. And the important thing about that is that this is operating like a baseload power plant, if that's the way they want to operate it. But battery...
Well, you got solar PV during the day, and they're saving it.
That's right. And, you know, they have 540 megawatts of PV, so they can send 150 megawatts to the grid. Well, they have 540 megawatts of PV, which will, you know, produce maybe an average of 300 or 250 megawatts. But it's going into that batteries, and the batteries are going to be delivering 150 megawatts of dispatchable power to the national grid, and they're just going to do that all the time.
They're doing what it needs to be done.
Yep, except for between 9:30 p.m. and 5 a.m. when all good people sleep. Except me, I don't sleep in that time. I usually go to bed at 8 and get up at 3.
It's going to be getting the power during the day from the sun and giving it back at night, or selling
That's right.
it.
Yeah, that's how it works. Now, this is a picture that I really found interesting, Tom. The one of the cable laying device on a ship.
Yes, I found it interesting too. The ship is running along, laying the power on the bottom laying the cable on the bottom of the ocean.
Yeah, and in case anybody's wondering, that cable might be 3 inches thick. That's not easily. A piece of thread.
No, it's maybe 5 inches. It's a big piece.
Yeah, and the ship, how fast is that ship going? It's crossing the ocean, and it's probably going about, I don't know, 1 or 2 knots at most. It's going to be creeping along really, really slowly. One thing you don't want to do with a cable like that is break it.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, this is from National Grid, which of course is not a news organization. It's the organization laying the grid. So what do you got?
National Grid announces commercial operations of a Viking Link, which is the world's longest land and subsea interconnector.
Yes. National Grid's new Viking Link electricity interconnector is operational, moving power between the United Kingdom and Denmark. So that's a pretty long distance. With a capacity of 1.4 gigawatts, that's a lot of power.
It is. That's a good solid connection there.
Yeah, that's a big one. The link runs for 475 miles to join substations in the UK and Denmark. So what do you think of that?
Very interesting.
Are you doing the Jonathan Swift thing? Jonathan Winters. Jonathan Winters.
Winters it was, yes.
Yeah. He was hysterically funny.
Yeah, he was.
And kids today, you know, kids who are under 50 have no idea.
Well, there's a picture, I think, of a solar-powered truck.
Yeah, this is a picture of a solar-powered truck, and it looks to me like it's sitting on a beach, and it might be, because this might be where their journey started.
Well, there's waves in the background. That's not a lake.
What it looks like. That's what it looks like. And this comes from Clean Technica.
I guess it does.
What do you got for a title?
Solar-powered truck achieves world EV altitude record.
Yeah. Gebrüder Weiss, a European logistics company, announced that the company's peak evolution team has achieved a remarkable feat, setting a new world altitude record for electric vehicles. The team drove to the astonishing altitude of 6,500 meters, which is about 21,000 feet, above sea level on solar power only. And what, Tom?
That's interesting.
Yeah. I looked at this and I thought, would they have been able to do that with a regular gasoline-powered vehicle? And you know what? I don't think there's any way they could have done this with a regular, certainly not with a stock vehicle. They would have had to do something to get that vehicle.
They've been pulling a trailer full of gas.
Yeah. This is a pretty interesting feat. And of course, in that picture, it looks like they've got a tent where they can stay, a table where they can play poker and lose all their money to the natives, and a big solar array just laid out flat.
Looks like it.
Yep. Okay, we are up to Sunday, December 31st.
That's what it says to me
That's
here.
what it says. And here, this is from CNN, and we have a picture of a storm. Yeah. What do you got?
The year's most extreme weather shows what a warming planet is capable of and what is to come.
In the hottest year on record, the fingerprints of a changing climate in a warming world were all over dozens of extreme weather events. Too much heat in the system raises the limits of what is possible in weather and pushes it toward the extremes.
Well, they raise the temperature of the air and you get more precipitation.
Absolutely. You get the climate changes, and you know, people who don't understand climate and weather don't understand this. But the
warm air can absorb more moisture.
Yeah.
And when it cools off, it drops the moisture.
That's right. And a few other things too. The vortices that go around the poles become unstable, so you can have horribly cold weather coming in the middle of winter. But you know, you should never assume that just because there is still cold weather like that. I forget the name of the senator who took the snowball into the Senate.
Yeah, right.
And
did I read his title?
What's that? Yeah, you did.
Okay.
Yep, you did. Now we're going to go to Monday, January 1st. And we have a picture of solar panels and article. What?
Well, that's what they look like to me.
Yep, and the article comes from DW, which is Deutsche Welle, which means German wave.
Uh-huh. And it says that China's solar sector steams ahead of the EU and the U.S.
Right. Chinese manufacturers have a huge cost advantage over international rivals, a Horizon report from Wood Mackenzie says. China's dominance is the result of economies of scale of large facilities, and Chinese companies have easy access to funding and less restrictive policies. Now, you'd think all of that would be what you'd come across in the United States, but it isn't. This is China. And one of the things...
You know, China is communist.
Yeah.
And they're the most capitalist country in the world.
I know. It's weird, but the thing is, one of the things that the Wood-Mackenzie report made clear is that China is not doing this on the basis of having a large workforce that is paid very little.
No?
No, that's not the key. The key is they are economies of scale, easy access to funding, less restrictive policies. And, you know, this reminds me of, I went to visit a friend about 20 years ago, and he had a bunch of his buddies over for after dinner. I think they were playing poker or something. But I mentioned something about a carbon footprint to one of the guys. Now, these guys were all businessmen, you know, in New Jersey, and they were all very conservative. And one fellow looked at me and he said, "You mean you actually believe in climate change? Global warming," I think he said. And I you know, the reply to this that you should make is, if you don't get a handle on that, you are excluding yourself from the biggest business opportunity in the history of man.
Now, that's an interesting quote.
I mean, it's true, and the Chinese have taken over the bus market, electric bus market, because we didn't step into it. Now, Bloomberg NEF did an inventory of American buses about 2 years ago. And what they found was that there were something like 650 of them in the United States. Just a couple of months later, I saw a headline that said that Bogota, Colombia, had just signed a purchase order with BYD for 702 buses. One city in Latin America was buying more electric buses than there were in the entire United States. And why were they willing to put the money into that? Well, it's simple, because they had had a lot of experience with electric buses. They had 700 of them already.
Uh-huh.
The United States was so backward on electric buses, and with the exception of Tesla, electric cars, but certainly electric trucks, electric mining vehicles, electric this, electric that. And what can you say about that? Well, I guess we have to move along, Tom.
But that.
Yeah.
And we're looking at a Quantino 25.
Yeah, I have no idea what that is.
It's an electric vehicle. Looks like a Corvette.
Yeah, it looks like a hot car.
It does.
But the interesting thing about this is what is this article, which comes from Clean Technica. What do you have for title?
Well, I'm going to tell you.
Oh, well, good idea.
New flow battery electric car to be made in the USA. Now, that's interesting.
I read that and I thought, holy smokes. The crazy dream of a flow battery EV is not really so crazy after all. The European firm Nano Flow Cell set up a U.S. office to pitch its new Quantino 25 electric car with new flow battery technology. Now the company is hatching plans for a whole U.S. flow battery ecosystem. Now, there is a takeaway that people should understand about this, and that is people talk about EVs bursting into flame and stuff like that. The fact is, not all EVs are made with lithium-ion batteries. A lot of them, including some of the Teslas, are made with lithium ferrophosphate batteries, but that doesn't really bring the end to it. And here we're talking about a flow battery, which is entirely different technology.
Oh yeah.
So and the reason I'm kind of excited about this is because I had always read that you are not going to put a flow battery into a car. It's just too bulky, and it's too confusing to engineer and stuff like that. And these people seem to have done it. And this flow battery, I don't remember what the reasoning is, but these flow batteries are very different from flow batteries that have come along before. So,
well, it makes sense sitting on the ground, but inside of a car, that raises my curiosity.
It raises my curiosity too, which is why this thing wound up in there. And the article does explain the flow battery to some extent, but it's something that you have to follow. We're up to Tuesday, January 2nd. And we have a pretty picture of a fairly large solar farm. And this one,
It's a good-sized solar farm, that's for sure.
it is. This article is in Clean Technica.
The rise of renewables is a reason to be hopeful in 2024.
Recently, Canary Media, and Canary Media is an interesting publisher, asked 6 of its regular contributors to talk about something that gives them hope for 2024. Eric Wessoff pointed out that Bloomberg NEF now forecasts 413 gigawatts of solar capacity will be installed worldwide in 2023, and that is will have been because we're talking about 2024. That's up from 260 gigawatts in 2022. 430 gigawatts.
Gigawatts.
And this is 413 of them.
That's a lot.
And that is from 460, that is an increase of, I'm not going to do the math in my head, but it's close to 50%. I think it's above 50%. No.
The rise of renewables. Well, it makes sense. As I said, people are going to be saying, they used to pay for fuel in those days.
That's right. The people will say that. And but the thing is, as these big solar farms go in, nowadays there are big battery farms that are going in with them.
With them.
And they can take over the place that baseload power used to take because they have these batteries. And we were talking about a solar and battery system just a few minutes ago where they were going to be delivering 150 megawatts of power from 5 a.m. until 9:30 p.m. every day. And that is ultimately it's a better power load because if you have to ramp up or down, you can do it instantly. You can't do that with baseload power plants at all. And it doesn't require fuel, so it doesn't have the health side effects, and it is not going to have to be taken down every once in a while, where the whole plant is taken down in coal-burning power plants and gas power plants every year at least. In nuclear plants, it's every 18 months usually for most plants in the United States.
Yeah.
So it's making its improvements. Okay, our next picture is, I don't know, I looked at this and I thought, that is weird.
From Wednesday, January 3.
That's right. And I looked at that bridge and I thought, that doesn't look like Western architecture to me.
I'm not sure what it is.
Well, it's a bridge.
Yeah, now that you tell me that.
Yeah. But the tops of the posts on that bridge don't look anything like any bridge I've ever seen.
No, they don't.
So I think that bridge is probably in China, which would make sense because this is a BYD thing. This is an article from Clean Technica.
Well, BYD is a Chinese car maker. Right?
That's right.
It means build your dreams.
That's right.
And it is the first company to sell 3 million plug-in vehicles in a year.
Right.
That's a lot.
That's a lot. We note that BYD was targeting 3 million vehicle sales in 2023, and it just surpassed that target. It had 3,023,679 EV sales in the year, all of which are plug-in vehicles. They don't make vehicles anymore that aren't plug-in. They made regular hybrid vehicles at one time, but they gave up on that in 2022. BYD's EV sales were split in 2023 as 52% were full electric vehicles and 48 were plug-in hybrids. So they're still selling gasoline-powered cars, but they're plug-in hybrids. And but the thing is, BYD is now selling more cars in a period of time in general, or sold more in December than Tesla did, and that was
BYD's. Most of BYD's vehicles are domestic. They don't export them.
They don't export many vehicles. They are starting to export them to various places.
Well, the market's big enough just to absorb everything they can make.
Yeah, but the thing is, they don't just sell electric cars. They sell electric buses.
Yeah.
And they sell electric trucks, like trash trucks and dump trucks and mining trucks, and they sell all kinds of things that Tesla doesn't sell. So I think that a case could be made that BYD is a bigger company than Tesla. It's not as well known in the United States, and its market value is not as high.
Well, it is bigger than Tesla, but it's not well known in the United States because it really doesn't do business in the United States.
I think it will be.
It's starting to.
Yeah, it's starting to. Okay.
There's a big enough market in China for everything they can produce.
Yeah, but the Chinese car manufacturers, from what I've read, are starting to think ahead and think to themselves that they have to expand their markets beyond China because they're starting to hit a little market resistance in China because so many people have got cars.
I was just going to say everybody in China's got a car to watch one.
Yeah, I think that's true. Okay, our last story, and this is a special story, I got to tell you.
Picture there, isn't it?
This is from Clean Technica. And that picture is a picture of, and I tried to figure out where it was. I don't know exactly where it is.
Vermont.
It is in Vermont. It is being done with the involvement of the University of Vermont. And what you're seeing there is agrivoltaic array in Vermont. Those vertical panels are getting electricity from the sunshine. And that array has got...
sideways. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah, it doesn't seem to, but that's what it is. And that array, that agrivoltaic array, is on the same piece of land as saffron. And the land that they are farming, in addition to collecting electricity, which it's doing fairly efficiently with those two-sided panels, is also being used to farm. My recollection is that it was $500,000 per acre of saffron.
Saffron is expensive.
Saffron is expensive, yeah. Maybe it was $400,000. But the synopsis we have says that saffron is $5,000 a pound. I cannot imagine buying a pound of saffron, but this is from Clean Technica. What do you got for a title, Tom?
Solar panels meet saffron in a new agrivoltaic project.
The allure of raising a spice crop that retails for $5,000 a pound is enticing. Wow. $5,000 a pound. In the unlikely state of Vermont, there is an agrivoltaic experiment underway. If all goes according to plan, it could pave the way for a saffron boom in the United States while it helps save the country's small farms. And I think this is really important because, we have... Well, for one thing, we have people objecting that they don't want solar panels put. There are people who are actually pushing the legislature, I think, to outlaw solar panels on agricultural land because they want the Vermont to stay agricultural. And this is about as sympathetic to farmers as rioting in their fields. They're the farmers have got a problem, and they've always had this problem, and the problem is it's hard to make money as a farmer. And the solar panels that they can put up, and this is just one example. There are many ways you can put up solar panels so that you can have crops growing under them or next to them or whatever.
You get a little source of income.
Yeah. The solar panels give the farmer a source of income that he wouldn't otherwise have.
Absolutely.
And, you know, as you can see...
Significant income, too.
What's that?
It's significant amount of income.
Yeah, and you can do the same thing with wind turbines, but people in Vermont don't want to have wind turbines anywhere because they're you know, they make people sick. Well, no, they don't make people sick. I followed this news right from the start of my blog, and it's been over 10 years since I saw news saying 25% roughly of the wind farms in Australia had excess symptoms near them. And I thought, wow, that's not good. And then I read on, and it said 65% or 2/3 or something of the wind farms had no increase in symptoms. And when you think of that combination, 25% of them have a significant increase in symptoms. That's what it was. 65% have no increase in symptoms. That means that 1 in 12 wind farms has no increase. It has an increase, but it's not statistically significant. And what that tells you is that you've got something you can track, because that's weird. And you can look at one wind farm and another and say, what are the differences here? And they did that. And they finally, the Australian Medical Association finally came up with its thing on wind turbines. And it was and if you follow the science behind how they came to these conclusions, you can see, yeah, these are real conclusions. They're not wishing things here. These are real conclusions. 3 conclusions. First, wind turbine syndrome is real. Second, wind turbine syndrome is not caused by wind turbines. Third, wind turbine syndrome is caused by scare tactics of anti-wind activists. What can you say about that?
Yeah, the thing happening in Wardsboro when I lived there.
Yeah.
We had a cable club, which is the only way you could get any kind of TV reception in the valley.
Yes.
You know, and a guy had a dish.
Yes.
Guy that was living there, and he moved to Florida, so he gave the dish to the cable club.
Yeah.
And the cable club didn't know what to do with it right away. They needed to buy electronics and couldn't afford it, so they just put it in the field. You know, they had to store it somewhere. They had to move it off the guy's property because he's moved to Florida.
Yeah.
So the woman across the river, across the road from this field, started getting sick.
I'm laughing. I shouldn't be laughing.
With the cable club. And I was the president of the cable club at the time, so I just brought in a lawyer. And we took a look at it, and, you know, the lawyer went back to her and said, there's no way that thing is making you sick. It's not connected to anything.
Okay, Tom. End of the story here. We are actually a little bit over. I've got the final slide up, and it says, have an unprecedentedly enjoyable week. So I am waving goodbye, and Tom is waving goodbye. And Tom,
I can't see that my cat is, so.
Your cat is at his food bowl.
No, I can see his food bowl. Well, I know where he is.
Then he's on the sofa, sleeping.
No, he's sitting on a chair in the living room. I can guarantee you that.
Okay. Bye, everybody. Thank you, Tom.
Adios.